Hello there, and welcome everyone to this episode of Ignition Time. Folks, there are three people who are very unhappy right now. The first is the senator from Louisiana, the Republican senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy. He criticized President Biden's stimulus plan, and he said the best way to deal with it is with a shredder. And he said that calling this a stimulus bill is like calling Harvey Weinstein a feminist. And he said it was spending porn. He said it was an orgy of spending, and this, that, and the other. I only show you this, folks, because if I saw this in an episode of Seinfeld, I'd be like, ha ha ha, that's funny. But this is real life. People's lives are at stake, and I do think it's important for our viewers and subscribers to understand not only what certain lawmakers say, but the kind of language they use. Another person that's unhappy is Greg Abbott, the Texas governor, the Republican governor from Texas, who actually reacted to President Biden's comment of Texas reopening as Neanderthal thinking. Yeah, we're going to take a look at that as well. And finally, Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, who claims he's silenced when he's all over the news networks. He weighed in on President Biden's stimulus plan as well. You can see this sort of a coordinated attack, if you will, from the Republicans on the stimulus plan. Let's first take a look at Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. Very, very interesting comments from Senator Kennedy. Let's actually take a look at this segment, and I want to know what you folks think. Let's watch this. Let's watch this together, everyone.
I could say a word about the coronavirus bill, Lawrence. Yeah. President Biden, because we're going to be taking it up tomorrow, President Biden said in putting together the bill, he said, we want to meet you, us, the Republicans, halfway. If that's the case, he's a damn poor judge of distance. Yeah. He's rejected everything we've proposed. This bill's dreadful. The only way I know how to improve it is with a shredder. It's not even a coronavirus bill. Calling this a coronavirus bill is like calling Harvey Weinstein a feminist. It's chock full of spending porn, billions of dollars to states and local governments that have seen their revenues go up, billions of dollars to pension programs, billions of dollars to schools with no requirement that they open. It's an orgy of pork, and using a so-called coronavirus bill as an excuse to fund pork is like.
Folks, I've never heard the phrase "an orgy of pork." I mean, hey, to each his own. If that's what gives you your kicks, that's okay. But I've never heard someone say orgy of pork. Just want to throw that out there.
It's a bad idea. A natural disaster.
It's a bad idea. So, Senator, I got to ask you this.
Sure.
You've had the opportunity.
So, folks, that was the first and pretty incredible segment. And by the way, we've sped up these segments at 1.5x speed, so they are a little faster, so we can make the video compressed and concise for our viewers. Now, let's take a look at important comments from Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, who responded to President Biden saying that early reopening was essentially Neanderthal thinking. And keep in mind that Texas and Mississippi and many other states are now starting to reopen, and it's very clear that President Biden does not like this. Let's now check out comments from the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, as he responds to President Biden. Let's first hear what the president said, his Neanderthal thinking comment, and then we'll get the response from the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Let's take a look.
The cusp of being able to fundamentally change the nature of this disease because of the way in which we're able to get vaccines in people's arms. We've been able to move that all the way up to the end of May to have enough for every American, to get every adult American to get a shot. And the last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime, everything's fine, take off your mask, forget it. It still matters.
And that was President Biden yesterday criticizing the decisions made by Texas and Mississippi to move ahead with rollbacks of their mask mandates. We're joined now by Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Tom Farley, Chairman and CEO.
And I just wanna prepare our viewers and subscribers. I just want to prep you. What the Texas governor does is blame the Biden administration for their policies, immigration policies, and importing COVID. So the Texas governor's response is that the Biden administration is importing the pandemic from south of the border. Yep, that's what he said. Super interesting, folks. I cannot make this up even if I want to. Judge for yourself which side you're on. Let's listen to comments from the governor of Texas.
This once again, he's still with us. Governor, it's great to have you on this morning. I know you've probably heard that mentioned, I don't know how many times since the president used the term Neanderthal. Comments?
Well, first, of course, Joe, it's not the type of word that a president should be using, but candidly for him, he couldn't have used it on a worse day because the day he used that word, his administration has been releasing in South Texas immigrants who came across the border that they refused to test. It turned out there were more than 100 of them who had COVID. My point is this. The Biden administration has been releasing immigrants in South Texas that have been exposing Texans to COVID. Some of those people have been put on buses, taking that COVID to other states in the United States. The Biden administration must stop importing COVID into our country. That is a Neanderthal-type approach to dealing with the COVID situation. Another thing, however, Joe, that's very important, and that is these changes that we've seen in Texas are not really that transformative. Maybe to people in New York, it seems like this is a big difference. In Texas, we went from 75% to 100% occupancy on the mask requirement. Before now, there actually has not been any enforcement of the mask requirement. They made it a mask suggestion, which we continue to make wearing a mask a suggestion, and we urge all Texans to wear a mask when they are out. However, this important factor, Joe, and that is if you look at the spikes in the spread in Texas as well as elsewhere, the last spike occurred during Christmas and New Year's at a time when people were not transmitting it when they went to restaurants or businesses. The lead area of transmission at the time was in the home setting where people were not wearing masks in the first place, and no one has ever mandated wearing masks in the home setting. And so the changes that we're talking about in Texas really are not that much different from where we've been. At the same time, if I could just quickly add, our numbers are at lows, 4-month lows in hospitalizations, in all the key metrics, such as the positivity rate. We're vaccinating. We vaccinated more than 1.2 million people over the past week. Yesterday was an all-time one-day record of 229,000 people. Our seniors are most vulnerable to being hospitalized and losing their life. We have about 50% of our seniors vaccinated, so things are looking very good in Texas.
You mentioned the
So, folks, let me know whether you agree or disagree with the positioning, with the strategy from the Texas governor. Now, another individual who was not at all happy is Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri. And as you can imagine, Fox News seized on the Neanderthal Thinking comment and got a reaction from Josh Hawley. So let's check out what the senator from Missouri had to say about the Neanderthal Thinking comment from the president, as well as other interesting comments about stimulus. Let's check it out.
On this, Senator, is this Neanderthal thinking? Because I'm looking on the states, listing of the states without mask mandates. Missouri's one of them. Do you have archaic thinking?
Yeah, what a uniter Joe Biden is. You know, this is Mr. Unity. And yet, if you disagree with him, you're a Neanderthal. This guy who's also called people who disagree with him Nazis. I mean, it's unbelievable. In Missouri, we're kind of used to this because we're always called by the D.C. crowd flyover country. So we've gotten this treatment for years. But the truth is, there's nothing wrong with actually following the science and allowing people to make their own decisions. In Missouri, we've had a flexible approach to this from the beginning. I think our governor has done a good job in giving local counties the ability to make their own decisions. But listen, if Joe Biden really wants to do more, why doesn't he focus his COVID relief package on vaccine distribution and actually put the brunt of the package there? Instead, he's spending hundreds of millions of dollars on stuff like abortion providers and environmental justice. That shows you where his priorities
It's spending
are.
the people's money. 9%, only 9% is going to COVID relief, and it's called the COVID relief package. When you look at all the pork, and I think we have a list of so much stuff that lawmakers have crammed in here.
COVID-y stuff.
Exactly. $1 trillion, though, still.
Guys, I'm happy that the Fox hosts didn't say an orgy of pork, because I definitely don't want to listen to that phrase a second time. I don't know about you. But this whole argument that everyone's seizing on 9% of the bill is on the pandemic. Folks, it was the same case with the first and the second bill. There was a section of the bill set aside for vaccine distribution. A majority of the bill was for stimulus checks, unemployment benefits, and other things that are a direct result of the pandemic. So to say that only 9% of the bill is for the pandemic, that's mischaracterizing the whole thing. So this is a very interesting positioning, if you will, from a political standpoint, to get all people all charged up. 9% of the bill. It was the exact same way with the first and the second bill, because a majority of the money is to deal with the outcome of the pandemic, and a small portion of the money is for the pandemic itself, meaning vaccine distribution, testing, and tracing. Now that is what they won't tell you, and that's why you're here on this channel. Let's get back to this segment, and let's pick up where we left off.
COVID-19 relief bill. So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that this is just an excuse? They want to say it's a COVID relief bill, but it's just an excuse to get what they need for their communities and their big donors?
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's about their left-wing agenda. And actually, the White House has been pretty frank about this. I think they called it the most progressive piece of domestic.
There's another word right there: left-wing agenda, liberal wish list, democratic wish list, radical left agenda. These are the words, right? The use of the word radical. It's a rallying cry.
Legislation in a generation, and that's about right. Notice COVID is nowhere in that sentence. I mean, you look at their priorities: funding abortion providers, funding environmental justice, shoveling money to blue states whose revenues are actually up. I mean, it's just pure politics. Meanwhile, what about workers? You know, all of their promises to workers about direct relief, they've scaled those back and scaled.
Revenues actually down for quote unquote red states like Texas and like Alaska, just so that we are clear. By the way, I will be doing another detailed video on which states are broke and which states aren't. So please make sure you click like, please subscribe, please enable notifications so you can get that alert. You definitely want to check out that video. Let's get back to Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri.
are getting less. Vaccine distribution is actually getting less. I mean, not, as you said, less than 9% of the money actually going to medical COVID relief, and all the rest of it to their special interests and to their left-wing agenda. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That is wrong. All the rest of it to their special interests and left-wing agenda is factually incorrect. There are Republicans who support many aspects of the bill, but to say all the rest of it for the radical agenda is just, unfortunately, it is a mischaracterization, and I have to call out the senator for that misleading statement.
We know a lot of people watching right now, they are looking at that $1.9 trillion and they're thinking, okay, but where's my check? You know, there are a lot of people, Senator, in this country who are hurting bad. And it is great that the federal government can open up our wallet, their wallet, Uncle Sam's wallet, and write them a check to help them through this tough time. The problem Republicans have is with all that other stuff, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, listen, I've supported direct relief to working families for months on end. And in fact, it got it in the last COVID relief package back in December that President Trump signed. I thought it should have been even more back then. The president was right about that he wanted $2,000 payments. That's exactly what it should have been. And so I'm all for that. The problem is that the rest of this bill, while they've been scaling back, the Democrats have relief to working families, they've been loading up their other special interest priorities. I mean, $50 million for abortion providers. Why is that in a COVID bill? What does that have to do with COVID? Environmentalist left-wing causes getting millions and millions in this bill. And that's just the stuff we know about. Wait till they read it today.
Sure. And what about $350 billion to states and local governments that shut everything down, whereas other states like Florida kept things open, they've got a lower unemployment rate. The states that have a high unemployment rate, like New York, where we're sitting, they will benefit from this.
Absolutely, they will. And the thing about it is that many of those blue states that are going to get billions under this bill, their tax revenues are actually up in 2020. I mean, they ended up doing better than they thought than they were going to. And as you say, they've already gotten billions in previous packages. So it is a left-wing giveaway. It is a left-wing social agenda that they're trying to use here. They're going to do it all without Republican support. I mean, they're not even attempting to get Republican votes in the Senate.
So the good news is they threw out Nancy Pelosi, basically symbolic, threw out Nancy Pelosi's transit system and threw out Chuck Schumer's bridge to Canada. But you have more targeted relief that so-called moderate Democrats are asking for. So that'll be in the bill. I thought it's kind of interesting. Senator Ron Johnson is making somebody read the whole bill out loud. So that's going to delay any passage. It's 600 pages. But let's move on and talk.
So, folks, that was the component that I wanted our viewers and subscribers to understand. Now, there were some interesting points made in the second half of the discussion with Senator Josh Hawley. There is definitely some wastage, some pork in the bill. I wouldn't call it an orgy of pork, like Senator Kennedy said at the start of this video. But, folks, I want to be clear, there is no such thing called a perfect bill. A perfect bill does exist. It exists in a place called La La Land. It does exist. There is no such thing as perfection. Perfection is the enemy of progress. We just need to get something done. And the fact that Senator Josh Hawley characterized the whole thing as a liberal wish list, a radical set of requirements, that is mischaracterizing it. There is definitely going to be some waste. There is absolutely no question about that. And is money going to states that have made more money during 2020 compared to 2019? The short answer is yes. California, for example, made more money in 2020 state revenue compared to 2019. But the real picture is much more complex. Folks, this is not a black and white situation. There are many shades of gray. And that's why I want you to subscribe to our channel, so you can get the full picture, so you can make informed decisions and be an informed citizen, so that you can essentially formulate an opinion of your own, which is well-rounded based on the facts, wherever the facts might lead us. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. I want you to know that I appreciate you, and I hope you learned something new. I'll be keeping you updated as the situation evolves. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Thank you so much. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe because it helps out the YouTube algorithm. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care. Bye.